Alright, what's up everybody? Today I want to talk about picking the reptile that you want. When you're a first-time reptile buyer, you might look at the world and say, well, you think all snakes are rodent eaters, all lizards are bug eaters, all turtles and tortoises are vegetarians or meat eaters, one of the two. But the truth is, a lot of reptiles, most of them, have specialty diets. Now, some in captivity can feed on strictly rodents. Those are the kind of animals that are easy to keep and breed. Have you noticed that a lot of corn snake and ball pythons are everywhere? Well, because they're easy to breed and they're easy to keep and they're easy to feed, you know, frozen thawed rodents, especially this day and age. But there's a lot of snakes that you probably think, why aren't anybody buying these? They're cool as crap. Here's one of them. This is a mud snake. Mud snakes, in my opinion, are extremely beautiful. They are red and black, much like a king snake, pattern-wise, but not quite. Most of them are red, some of them are yellow, white. I did find one time that was white and black, which is pretty cool. But most of them are red and black and a little bit of yellow on them. Really, really beautiful snakes. Why don't you see these too much in the pet industry? Well, that's a simple reason, because they're specialty eaters. They're not something you can throw a rodent in and it will eat it. They're not easy to breed. They're not like that. So it's very difficult. You know, a lot of people have them on display at a zoo or something, but they're not good breeders and they're not good to have for the average person. The reason is, like I said, they're specialty eaters. They eat sirens and infumas. That's very hard for the average person to come by. You can't just go onto one of the food sites to buy some rodents or crickets and expect to find sirens and infumas. And when you do find sirens and infumas for sale, they're kind of expensive. So these guys are specialty eaters. That's the reason you don't see a lot of them. If you want to take the time, feed them, you probably have to catch your own sirens and infumas, then they're cool little pets. They're really neat, especially with their habitat. And that's another thing I want to talk about is habitat. Not every animal needs the same habitat. Some need a lot of humidity, some need very little humidity, some like to stand water most of the time, some don't. And that's the same across the board with all reptiles, not just snakes, but turtles, tortoises, everything. We've talked about box turtles before. People think they look like a tortoise, they must be a tortoise, they must eat like a tortoise. Box turtles are not vegetarians. They prefer vegetables and fruits, but also a high protein base too. Bugs, crickets, slugs, fish, crawdads. That's why it's important to research what you are getting before you get it. You don't want to go on a reptile buying site or a show, because I used to vend a lot of shows, and get something and then research it later and realize you might have gotten something you can't even feed if you wanted to. A lot of the common snakes, if you have ball pythons, corn snakes, those are pretty easy to take care of. Those are pretty easy to feed. But you have to remember, a lot of these things are specialty eaters, specialty habitats. You have your arboreal snakes that don't like being on the ground, and then you have your ground snakes that don't like being in a tree. And the way you set up your cage depends on that. We talked about king snakes before. King snakes like to burrow. You want to have a lot of substrate in there. Some animals, you could put a ball python in a rack and he's perfectly fine. No problems there. Some animals need a lot of humidity, some don't. You just do your research. With lizards, snakes, everything, because you might be surprised at some of the natural feeding habits of some of these animals. Eastern hognose are another one. I've kept a lot of eastern hognose in the past, and getting them on rodents actually doesn't do good for them, which is why you don't see a lot of them. It's too fatty for them. They're toad eaters by nature. Western hognoses can take the rodent food and they do fine. King cobra is another one, naturally in the wild. They eat a ton of snakes, that's about it. Too many rodents will make them obese and sluggish, could kill them. If you can get them eating rodents, mainly captive born ones. It's hard, almost impossible to get a wild-caught king cobra to eat rodents, but it is possible. But like I said, the best thing you can do is research your animal, see what it needs. Some snakes, some turtles, some lizards have a much more complicated diet and breeding pattern than than a lot of people just expect. Especially breeding's another one. You think you just throw a male and a female in together and it's going to have some babies, but that's not the case. Sometimes you have to do certain things. You might have to make it so it seems like the rainy season, duplicate that in order for them to breed. Now some snakes, corn snakes, ball pythons, a lot of snakes, I'm not saying there's not a lot, but there are a lot that you can just throw in there and you can probably get some breeding going on. Maybe put on some Marvin Gaye, some Luther Vandross. But you know, in general, if you're planning on just having a pet, you want to make sure you have the right food and the right care it needs, the correct sunlight, humidity. It's not that hard. I'm just saying that some are specialty and people don't realize it. Like this guy right here. Don't go buy a mud snake from a store or a show if you don't know that they're gonna need sirens and infumas. You're not gonna, trust me, you throw a mouse in there, it's not gonna eat it. You're wasting a mouse and eventually killing the snake. And you have to have the right humidity and everything else for these guys. They like to swim, they're water-based. Anyway, do your research. Don't just pick a snake because it's cool, because I've been there and done that, and you don't want that. Get something you like, fits your personality, and do your research. Like and subscribe and comment on the bottom if you have any questions, or if you can think of anything I missed. There's a ton of them out there that have specialty diets. So thanks.